these and details coming up on tonight's bulletin. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Eric Njoka.
I'm Linda Ogutu.
We begin at the International Criminal Court, where judges have now terminated the charges against former head of civil service Francis Muthaura.
The trial chamber judges by a majority granted the prosecution's request to drop the charges. The move came as Uhuru Kenyatta's defense team pushed for a withdrawal of the case following the collapse of the charges against Muthaura. KTN's Norteno begins our news coverage on this Monday night.
Unfair and biased decision that is keeping us in this case as a symbol. And I'm not saying that just speaking out of hubris. I'm saying that because the key evidence against Muthaura, which caused the withdrawal of his case, is exactly the same for Kenyatta. The 3rd of January meeting doesn't exist, and the 30th of December was never a meeting anyway on that date. This has been misrepresented as having been part of the evidence in the case and a misunderstanding by the pre-trial chamber as to the evidence which could clearly be read. Now, I'm not being overly critical because this case was done in a complete rush. It was a rush to justice. The documents were served very, very late minute, full of redactions, many issues for people to deal with, and they have taken a considerable amount of time to analyse, to see exactly what is being said.
This means that the common plan could not have succeeded without the contribution of Mr. Muthaura. Or common plan even does not exist without contribution of Mr. Muthaura. The prosecution still maintain that the specific contributions initially alleged to have been performed by Mr. Muthaura were still essential to the common plan? And if so, if it is not incumbent upon the prosecution to seek an amendment of the charges to explain who, instead of Mr. Muthaura, performed those acts?
As far as we're concerned, with regards to the acts that have been attributed to Mr. Kenyatta, we are going to maintain that those acts are attributable to him. The acts that are overlapping between Mr. Muthaura and Mr. Kenyatta, Your Honors, we would indeed still attribute those to Mr. Kenyatta.
All right, it could be a sigh of relief, but not yet time to celebrate for the other suspect, Deputy President-elect William Ruto. Earlier today, a key witness in Ruto's case recounted his testimony, alleging that he had been bribed to frame the former Eldoret North Member of Parliament. The witness has now written to ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, asking her to withdraw any of his testimonies and to remove him from the list of witnesses. And as Aaron Ochieng reports, the developments in ICC have raised new questions about the continued viability of the Kenyan cases.
An International Criminal Court witness identified as OTP-8, who was expected to testify against the Deputy President-elect William Ruto, has stepped down. Through his lawyers sitting in Eldoret, the witness wrote to the ICC prosecutor withdrawing each and every piece of evidence attributed to him and asked to have his name removed from the list of the prosecution witnesses. In a sworn affidavit written to the prosecutor of the ICC, the witness number 8 asked Fatou Bensouda to discard any piece of evidence attributed to him and at the same time withdraw his name from the list of witnesses. The affidavit goes further to say any interviews and statements that I've made were induced by bitterness because of the rivalry between my party at the time, PNU, and ODM. The witness also revealed in his affidavit that he was promised a reward and settlement in either Europe, America or Australia if he gives a strong testimony.
He wants to tell the truth and he doesn't want anybody to to suffer because of a false statement. He has considered the whole matter. He has done some soul searching.
This will be a second major witness to withdraw from the Kenyan case after ICC witness number 4 in the Kenyan case withdrew and forced the prosecution to drop charges against Ambassador Francis Muthaura.
He told me while in Netherlands, his ID, his passport, that of his wife, those of his children were all taken away. So they could not even travel.
International law experts say witnesses have every right to make an about-turn before testifying, and it is the duty of the prosecution to look for another evidence, failure to which a case will be inconsequential.
The prosecutor finds herself in between a rock and a hard place if the witnesses either refuse to testify or recant or denounce their statements, or otherwise refuse to cooperate.
But he further says that in case there is sufficient evidence to prove that a witness could have been persuaded by a suspect to change his position on the case, then both the suspect and the witness will be in for trouble.
It is a headache to bring evidence to actually show there was bribery by so and so against so and so. Now then they can institute, because the court can actually institute a process of like an arrest or prosecution, whether here or in Kenya or elsewhere.
For now, William Ruto will be waiting to see if the withdrawal of witness number 8 will weaken his case, forcing the prosecution to drop charges against him. A rather tricky situation for Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda as she seeks to consolidate a strong case against the Kenyan suspect at the ICC. This as suspects of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. Watch closely what is unfolding at The Hague. Aaron Ochen, KTN, Nairobi.
Elsewhere, Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi has denied signing any post-election pact with President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee coalition. Mudavadi has dismissed those claims as pure speculation, however maintaining that he is ready to work with the government of the day. However, the agreement will be based on clear agreement structures.
In as many days after meeting with President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta, the United Democratic Front's flag-bearer Musalia Mudavadi has come out to deny any allegations that he entered into an agreement with the Jubilee Alliance.
There has been unnecessary speculation about Amani signing post-election agreements. I want to state here very categorically that that is not so.
Speculations that have put him under pressure as some party members move to distance themselves from the supposed pact between UDF and Jubilee. But even as Musalia denies signing any agreement, he seems to be still undecided on which direction to take politically.
We have had some discussions with the Jubilee side. It does not stop us from having some discussions with the CORD side.
A more or less diplomatic approach that helps Mudavadi save face with his party and the Jubilee Alliance, and perhaps even buys him time in the event the country goes into an election rerun. Musalia Mudavadi is stuck between a rock and a hard place. To stay politically afloat, he may need to sign up with the winning team. However, after Uhuru Kenyatta publicly rejected his bid to be the Jubilee Alliance flag-bearer in the just concluded elections, pundits say that going back to the Jubilee Alliance would portray Mudavadi as a political weakling. Musalia Mudavadi, who emerged the third best in the just concluded presidential election, says that he is willing to work with the government of the day. But this decision doesn't necessarily reflect the wishes of the larger UDF party, but rather his own personal decision. Catherine Omwando, KTN in Nairobi.
You're watching KTN Prime, and that story leads us to our big question tonight, and we're asking you.
Are you in support of post-election political pact? Send your yes or no responses with a brief comment to the number 8040, and we'll surely sample your views during this live newscast.
Right, elsewhere, Prime Minister Raila Odinga was today in Mombasa on a Meet the People tour, where he continued admonishing the IEBC for robbing him of his victory in the March poll. Raila insisted that CORD has sufficient evidence to prove that the votes garnered by Jubilee's Uhuru Kenyatta were inflated. In his public address, the PM urged his supporters to maintain peace as the country gears up for the titanic court battle.
On his arrival, Raila Odinga was received by CORD-elected members, including Governor-elect Ali Hassan Joho and Senator-elect Hassan Omar Hassan, among others. The convoy then made a number of stopovers at Sabasaba, Changamwe and Portrees, where Raila echoed his confidence in the petition filed by the CORD coalition.
Wakenya walienda barabarani. Mwaka hii tulisema hatuendi barabarani. Nasema tunaenda mahakamani. Sasa tumepeleka makaratasi mbele ya mahakama. Ngojeni mtaona ukweli ikitoka huko.
Raila urged his supporters to stay calm and maintain peace as the world follows closely the proceedings of the Supreme Court, expected to officially begin on the 25th of March. The CORD leaders termed Raila's move to go to court as his democratic and constitutional right and called on Kenyans to remain patient as the court handles their petition.
Watu wengi wamepoteza uhai wao. Damu imemwagika. Jasho limetutoka. Tukitafuta haki na usawa. Pale ambayo wanawake wawili waling'ang'ana mtoto mmoja. Unajua? Alipelekwa mbele ya Sulemani mfalme. Akasema ati tukate katikati. Na yule mama ambaye alikuwa ameua mtoto wake usiku akasema kata katikati. Lakini yule mwenye mtoto akasema pana mpatie aende naye. Sio. Mwaka ile ya 2007 tulimpatia mama ile mtoto wetu. Mwaka hii tena tumpatie.
According to the Registrar of the Judiciary, the court will hear the petition starting next Monday, after which it should give a verdict by the 14th day since the petition was filed. For KTN, I'm Betty Kyalo.
Right, elsewhere, the presidential petition against the election of Uhuru Kenyatta has now been gazetted. The petition was published in the Kenya Gazette as parties in the petition prepare for the precedent-setting legal battle. The petition will put into sharp focus the 6 judges of the Supreme Court, more so its president, Dr. Willie Mutunga. But who is this man, Mutunga? Rita Tidina takes a closer look at the man who was imprisoned for 3 years and who now faces the supreme tests.
With the clock ticking on the 14-day constitutional deadline for the Supreme Court to hear and determine the presidential election petition, the spotlight is firmly on the 6 Supreme Court judges. 5 men and 1 woman who will make a ruling on the precedent-setting case challenging the declaration of Uhuru Kenyatta as the winner of the March 4th polls. As president of the highest court in the land, 65-year-old Dr. Willie Munyoki Mutunga is a man under sharp focus. Described by some as a reform activist, Mutunga began his activism while serving as a law lecturer at the University of Nairobi in the 1970s. He and other academics formed the university staff union in 1972. In 1979, just months after Daniel Moi took over power, Mutunga became the union's Secretary General. His campaign to have controversial author Ngugi wa Thiong'o given his university teaching job back landed him in trouble with the KANU regime. Mutunga was arrested in June 1980 and was accused of being a member of the December 12 movement. 2 years later, in June 1982, he was charged in court for being in possession of seditious material and was detained just days before the abortive August 1, 1982 coup. After 3 years and 4 months in prison, Mutunga was released in October of 1983 and went into exile in Canada. Willie Mutunga, who had before his incarceration obtained a law degree from the University of Nairobi and a master's degree from the University of Dar es Salaam, used his time in exile to pursue his doctorate of law from York University in Toronto. Even as he studied, he continued pushing for reforms back home. Together with other exiles at the time, such as Kiraitu Murungi, they launched the Kenya Human Rights Commission. In 1992, Mutunga, who was then among a group of pro-democracy activists such as Paul Mwite, James Orengo, Kiraitu Murungi, Raila Odinga and Gitobo Imanyara, became the chairman of the Kenya Human Rights Commission as his fellow reform activists joined politics. He was later to serve as chairman of the Law Society of Kenya from 1993 to 1995. During his tenure, the LSK was seen as a formidable voice compared to the then divided opposition. Mutunga spearheaded an initiative of the LSK, the Kenya Human Rights Commission and the International Commission of Jurists to draft a new constitution despite resistance from the then government. The 4Cs, Citizens Coalition for Constitutional Change, was born in January of 1995, but did not realize its goals after the then President Daniel Moi declined to negotiate constitutional reform with the civil society. In 1997, the constitution reform agenda was taken over by the Inter-Parties Parliamentary Group. Behind the scenes, Mutunga worked on opposition unity. In 2002, he convened a breakfast meeting of Mwai Kibaki, Kijana Wamalwa and Charity Ngilu, the then leading opposition figures. The talks led to the formation of the National Alliance for Change, which later merged with KANU rebels under LDP to form the National Alliance for Rainbow Coalition, NAC. Mutunga declined an offer to serve as the chairperson of NAC, saying he was not interested in joining politics and only wanted to unite the opposition. In April 2003, after NAC won the 2002 election, Mutunga declined an appointment to the University Council of the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, saying he did not have the right qualifications for the job. A year later, he joined the Ford Foundation as a Human Rights Program Officer. In 2009, he became the Executive Director, a position he held until May 2011 when he was shortlisted and later vetted for the position of Chief Justice. He was appointed Chief Justice in June 2011. Dr. Willie Mutunga has spearheaded reforms in the judiciary, which has been working hard to rebuild its image. But the historic presidential petition will provide the supreme test for the highest court in the land. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
There you have it, a little information on Dr. Willie Mutunga. As the court mulls over the historic case across 5 civic wards, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission staged repeat elections today after the exercise hit a snag 2 weeks ago. The repeat polls were conducted in Kuria East, Samburu North, Bunyala North and Gwasi. Voters in the affected areas never got a chance to choose their county assembly representatives following a mix-up of ballot material. KTN's Western Kenya reporter Fredo Mulo has the details.
Voting in the March 4th poll suffered serious setbacks after various systems primed to safeguard the integrity of the process failed. But the Electoral Commission is moving to address some of the anomalies, especially in areas where the electorate was disenfranchised.
I wouldn't say it's any different from what we had on 4th, because we still have the EVD machine which we are using. Yes, so the process is the same actually. It's the same people who conducted the other 5 elections, so there is no departure from what we had.
Unlike the March 4th exercise, the manual voter register was thrown out of the window this time, with the electronic voter identification kits working just fine.
All along we have been working on electronic. We have the EVD machines. They are working.
Voter turnout was also surprisingly good after grassroots mobilization exercises, despite expectation that apathy may set in.
This one may have, some people may have even forgotten and gone for their long businesses or something. So this may have a bit of effect on the voter turnout. And the other thing is cattle wrestling.
Security agencies were also on high alert after a rustling incident last night in which 10 heads of cattle went missing. A total of 80 regular and administration police officers were guarding polling stations and the tallying center. Similar repeat elections were held in 4 other wards across the country.
As the nation focuses on the petition that the Court Alliance has lodged with the Supreme Court, the IEBC is moving to close all the loopholes that created challenges in the exercise on March 4th. So far, it has been a success. From Kuria East constituency in Migori County, I am Fredo Mulo.
In other stories tonight, concerns are now emerging over the ongoing wrangles between governors-elect and county commissioners over county assets.
The tussle has sparked questions on whether these two crucial offices will have a clash of roles once the devolved system of government takes charge. KTN's Ashamwilu reports.
The Transition Authority has been on overdrive to facilitate the basic structure of county governments before the governors are sworn in next week. The authority is, however, facing a major gridlock over assets in various counties countrywide. A huge tussle has been brewing between the governors-elect and officials from the Office of the President over offices. In Garissa County, workers from the Municipal Council obstructed the refurbishment of their offices into county headquarters, prompting the authority to intervene.
When this governor were elected, some of them then said, look, we don't particularly like this particular building that has been assigned to us, but these county commissioners, some of them also said that they will not allow national government officials to be removed, if you like, or from the offices they used to occupy before for occupation by the county governors and county staff. That is really the genesis of this, what appears to be a conflict between the governor and the county commissioner.
Such wrangles over office space and housing are reported to have derailed the transition process in most counties, and now only 1 week remains before the governors take office officially. The big concern now is that this tussle over assets could end up causing a major clash between governors and county commissioners who are appointed by the president.
A governor is in charge of the management of all those functions that in Schedule 4 of the Constitution are allocated to the county government. The office you are referring to as county commissioner be a national government employee, not a county government employee, and whose role will be basically to coordinate the functions of the national government being performed in a county.
The confusion on roles, however, goes beyond the county commissioners and governors. Currently, all provincial commissioners are still in office, so are the district commissioners and district officers. But what stake do they have in the devolved government?
District commissioners, the titles are going to change. They are now called deputy county commissioners. The DOs are now going to be called assistant county commissioners, assistant deputy county commissioners.
When does this transition period end? When do we say we've already transitioned into the devolved system of government? After they're sworn in?
No, the Constitution again is fairly clear. It says that the transition is expected to be completed 3 years after the first elections under this Constitution. So for the next 3 years, we'll be involved in transition.
For the last 49 years, Kenyans have known a well-laid-out system of government with a provincial administration, 8 provinces, 290 districts. But now the devolved system of government takes over, and stakeholders say that the scuffles we're experiencing between the central government and the governors-elect were preempted by the Constitution, which provided a transition period. Kenyans, however, are hoping that these are just teething problems, and in no time all 47 governors will be up and running. Ashamwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
All right, there you have it. Now to a tragedy here in Nairobi, and residents of Dagoretti area are now living in extreme fear after a pack of stray dogs attacked and killed a 65-year-old man there. Residents staged a protest but were later informed that the rogue dogs had been killed. Charity Kimani has the details to that story.
These residents of Muteni were furious. And it all had to do with the mysterious death of 65-year-old Stephen Kagomo, a man who is said to have been walking home at the wee hours of the morning Sunday when he was brutally attacked by 6 dogs. Dogs that were known in the neighborhood for terrorizing everyone. But what got the crowd even more angrier is that this was not the first time the dogs attacked.
Nikitoka nikakuta umbwa 5 zinakula hiyo umbwa. Sasa tumetoka na bwana yangu. Sasa tuchukue mtu anatoka na kitu tukichukua tukitoka nje tukiwa na kitu ukijaribu kuigonga hiyo umbwa inakukimbilia.
The attack happened just outside Dagoretti Child Intervention Home where the dogs stayed. When the said owner of the dogs, Felista Wangoi, learnt of the death, she locked all the dogs in the house to protect them from the angry mob outside her gate. Police were later called to the scene to remove the body, where residents protested against the removal of the body and threatened to torch the police car until all the dogs were killed.
Kwa hii area tuseme kitu ya kwanza hakuna security, that is one. Ni kama umbwa zitaenda, hatusemi hazitaenda, tutajipanga ki-security.
Tunasema ama vile watu wenyeji wa kijiji hiki wanasema ni hizi umbwa ziwawe kwa sababu sio mtu wa kwanza. Hii ni kesi ya 4 imepelekwa kwa wao lakini hakuna jukumu ama step wanachukua.
As the crowd outside chanted for justice, the dogs were killed with 1 shot of a lethal injection inside the owner's compound and were later brought out for the crowd to see. Residents of Muteni finally had their justice. They would now sleep peacefully throughout the night. Charity Kimani, KTN.
You're watching KTN Prime, and in our big question tonight we asked you if you
market share with a 393 million share investment in a new satellite platform. Now the investment gives Zuku room to add more channels in a bid to diversify its product offering. Zuku, the second largest pay TV service provider by market share, says the upgrade also gives it flexibility that currently is not available in its terrestrial network, guaranteeing faster market access.
The last decade or so has seen a major shift in the country's pay TV industry. The move by the government to migrate to the digital platform has also seen renewed interest with at least 2 new entrants. Zuku believes the $4.6 million investment will give it an upper hand in the market with the ability to offer more channels to its customers. However, the firm says the increased channels in its premium bouquet will not lead to an increase in subscription fees.
Not only do we have more channels, but we've also launched 2 high-definition channels. So Zuku Movies Max is going to be in HD and Zuku Sports in HD. So it's a great day for our consumers here in East Africa who've been enjoying our services. It's also a great day for this local champion Wananchi Group, which now has the ability to expand its services across the whole continent.
In the past 3 years, the entry of Wananchi with its Zuku brand and StarTimes has pushed the competition a notch higher, forcing market leader DSTV to roll out bouquets that cater for low-income earners. Zuku's premium bouquet retails at 3,000 shillings and 999 after a 25% cut in August last year, while StarTimes charges between 499 and 3,000 shillings. The pay TV providers have however been unable to shake DSTV's dominance, especially in the premium market that MultiChoice serves with exclusive content of the English Premier League, and renewed its calls for CCK intervention.
If you look at the number of graves on the pay TV graveyard in Africa today, GTV, Smart TV, High TV, Top TV, a lot of pay TV operators have gone under, and regulators should be asking themselves why. Now we're fortunate, we're a very large, well-capitalized group, and we don't have that problem, but what's happening is the consumer is suffering.
The upgrade will take place in all East African countries, including Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
Let's now take a look at other business headlines on this 18th day of March 2013.
National carrier Kenya Airways is set to launch new flights to Livingstone, Zimbabwe, its 60th destination. The new flights begin on June 2nd, 2013 and will operate 3 times weekly via Harare, Zimbabwe. The city of Livingstone joins the airline's networks of destinations as it works on growing its routes to over 115 by the year 2021. Service provider Orange has launched a service that enables reverse charge calls within its network. Dubbed Nisot, the service enables subscribers to make calls when their call's party credit balance is 0. The service will request the call recipient to accept the charges before completing the call. Previously, reverse charge calls were possible only as operators assisted calls and only on a fixed line network. And finally, KenGen held an extraordinary general meeting of the bondholders to approve the harmonization of the debt service coverage ratio from 1.5 to 1.3 effective from the 3-year till maturity date in 2019. The harmonization is expected to enable the company attract financing cost of capital to enable it meet the country's current growth in demand for electricity power estimated at 8% per year. The bondholders voted through a poll and the outcome will be published in the press. Philip Ketan, KTN Business Today.
Now the NSE 20 share index has been firmly sitting in the region of 4,700. But for those details and how your money is doing for you, let's take a look at the money market report.